Hey, thank you, Brian. Senator Bennet, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask you to make a judgment about tonight, the 2-hour debate. I think your generation won. I mean, you and Kamala and Kirsten Gillibrand, and I thought the two older guys who will be in their 80s in the first year, second year of their presidency did not look good tonight. Your thoughts?
Well, my main thought is how much I miss Claire McCaskill, I should say. But second, Bernie posed the question at the end. He said, if you guys all want to do this, how can for the last 40 years we have this lack of economic mobility in the country? To which I say to Bernie, exactly. Maybe it's time for new leadership to figure out how we're actually going to drive the country forward. I think it's time.
It seemed to me that for the first time, it didn't happen last time, there was some pushback against the hard left, if I can use some shorthand here. Bernie stands for what he calls Medicare for all. That's what he calls it. Financially, it is much more complicated than that. You and a lot of the other candidates tonight said, no, I've got a different approach. Some said, fix Obamacare first.
What is true of Bernie is that tonight he told the truth about his plan, which I appreciate, which is that it makes private insurance illegal except for cosmetic insurance. That is not something we can sell in the state of Colorado. That is not something that we can sell in Arizona or North Carolina. We need to beat Donald Trump. We need a presidential candidate who can speak to the rest of the country. And if we're going to dislodge Mitch McConnell as well, we need to elect Senate candidates that can do this.
In a free country, how can you say you can't sell health insurance? I don't understand what he's talking about.
Why would you?
I mean, why would it be? It's not constitutional. You can't say, well, you can't sell soap, you can't sell cars, but you can't sell health insurance. What kind of law would that be?
I don't know why.
I don't even know where it would fit.
I don't know why you would. What Bernie says is because he thinks the private insurance companies are gouging people. Yeah. And you know what? They probably are. So there are probably ways of regulating that. But still, why not give people an option? And if they hate their private insurer, which I occasionally have myself, they can move on to something else. But we can't wait. I mean, these ideological debates that have taken decades and decades of the American people's time have to give way to something else.
Let me talk to you about, I thought something was interesting because Biden, the former vice president, recalls better days in the Senate. He talks about being able to deal with Mitch McConnell. And, of course, those of us who've been covering news the last couple of years remember Merrick Garland. He just killed a Supreme Court nominee right in our face. Is this idea, you said something tonight about gridlock is Mitch McConnell.
Right. I think, look, first of all, there are structural problems with Congress now that the vice president didn't deal with. Citizens United, the gerrymandering stuff that we got today, and also the attacks on voting rights. But beyond that, that was an era where when there were bipartisan deals cut, they were with McConnell taking everything. I've said before that McConnell is immune to give and take unless he's taking everything. And on that fiscal cliff deal that Joe Biden talked about tonight, McConnell took everything and he stole the Democrats' economic argument for the last presidential election. We had run against the Bush tax cuts. That deal made those Bush tax cuts, almost all of them, permanent. We had run against across-the-board cuts, the so-called sequester that was going to be so ugly that Congress would never pass it. That deal made it the law of the land. Tonight, it's the law of the land. And now on the top of that, we've had the Bush tax cuts. And I view it as part of a bigger issue, which is that since 2001, we've cut taxes $5 trillion, mostly on wealthy people, which means we've exacerbated income inequality, and we spent $5.6 trillion in the Middle East, a lot of that on the Iraq War. That's 11 or 12 trillion bucks we could have invested in this economy.
Your recent colleague, the one you were praising a moment ago, would like to talk to you. Former Senator Claire McCaskill.
I would love to talk.
Here she comes.
So, Michael,
first of all, could I please have your new cell phone number because I don't have it.
Not on the air, but I will get it to you.
Thank you.
First of all, I think it's important that people realize that you are somebody who's actually gotten in the room where it happens, especially on immigration. You referenced it tonight that you were one of the key players when we got a bipartisan deal on comprehensive immigration reform and got a boatload of Republican votes. Some luminaries like Lindsey Graham. Can you imagine? And I think you ought to speak to what that bill did and that some of the proposals are being talked about by some of the candidates are never going to get 60 votes. But the proposal you put together, it's realistic. We could do that to help the DACA kids and to do some of the pathways to citizenship that we all care about.
So two things, Claire. First of all, that bill had a pathway to citizenship for the 11 million people that are undocumented. It had the most progressive DREAM Act ever conceived of, and it had $46 billion of border security. So every time Donald Trump says Democrats are open borders, Democrats should talk about that bill because every Democratic senator, including you, voted for it. But the second thing that's important, I think, is the process that we went through. 6 months meeting together behind closed doors to fashion a legislative compromise. Then it went to the Judiciary Committee. Then we marked it up. Then we went to the floor. This is the Senate Chris Matthews would remember. Yep. This wasn't cutting a deal at 2 o'clock in the morning on a piece of legislation that nobody read, which was what the fiscal cliff deal was. And I think this is the way we're going to be able to build bipartisan support. Do it in a way that the American people understands what's at stake. Figure out ways of compromising on issues without compromising on principle, and let's move the country forward from this tired debate that's not going to get us where we need to be.
We have to say goodnight, but I want to ask you a last question, yes or no. Was your colleague, Kamala Harris of California, was she right to go after Biden, the former vice president, for praising the civility of segregation of senators?
Well, I think that that she was right to do that. I think he shouldn't have asked Cory Booker to apologize. But tonight, I also think we heard such a powerful statement from Senator Harris about her experience as a little kid in her district. You know, as somebody who was the superintendent of the Denver Public Schools and knows what those busing wars looked like, it was before my time, but there were people still around that made those incredibly difficult decisions, needed support from the federal government. I'm glad Kamala said what she said.
She said she still feels the hurt. Senator, thank you.